Hello and welcome to the SI5 Improvement Podcast, where we bring to you supreme intelligence to self-improvement. With high performance from everyday people, because I truly believe that every single one of you has advice to give, value to share, that the listeners from this podcast can take into our own life, apply and improve. Because when you improve you improve your life. Today's episode, we have a guest, Georgina Mckimm. She's a life coach. She's going to be sharing what it took for her to change her life, how she's now got herself in a position where she can provide great value for other people who want to improve their life. She has overcome challenges and she's going to provide, I know, an absolute wealth of wisdom and knowledge to help everybody who's listening to this to take something from it and apply it into their life. So thank you for tuning in. Georgina, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited for this.
I really appreciate you coming on because you're the first guest I've had on this new podcast of mine. So I really appreciate your support.
I feel totally privileged to be the first guest. I'm actually, I'm proud to be the first guest.
Yeah, I'm proud that you are the first guest because I know the amount of information that you can provide. First of all, how are you today?
I'm good. Great start to the day. Nice sunrise run, little dip in the sea, and ready to go.
I saw, yeah. You sent me a photo of the morning sunrise, coming up from the sea on your run.
Yeah, it was magical.
Perfect way to start the day. I'm going to delve into one of your first successes that you told me about, and the first one you mentioned was your biggest success. One of your top three was learning to love yourself.
Yeah.
Now, I think there's going to be a lot of listeners that get that, and I think there's going to be a lot of listeners that don't quite understand that, me included. And you know me, Georgina, so like when I hear like the phrase "learn to love yourself," there's something about me where I kind of cringe at it a little bit, and maybe I don't understand it fully what it means. And I think there's going to be other people that may feel the same, and there's other people that are going to completely understand. So first of all, before we talk about why that was such a big success for you to learn to love yourself, what does learning to love you? What does loving yourself mean?
I think everyone will have their own take on this because they're not loving themselves, and loving themselves will look completely different to what mine looks like. But when you just said, it almost makes you cringe. Like I actually used to feel like that too. Like that was like a part of the process I had to go through because at that time, and this again is completely different for everybody's journey, but like I didn't love myself for a long time, but I didn't realize it. And it was the way I spoke to myself. It was like such a negative perspective. It was like, I was never good enough. No matter how much I achieved, those achievements were never good enough. I look back now and those achievements, they were bloody amazing. But because I didn't love myself, I wasn't able to have that grasp on it, because nothing was ever going to be good enough unless I learned to love myself. And then, the way I used to speak to myself was awful. Like I would never speak to another person like it. So why would I speak to myself like it? So it was digging down into those areas to understand, actually, like, where have they come from? Why are they there? And then how can I change that and now it's like it's not about the achievement. Literally for me, it's about the journey. It's about like the success is the journey, which we just spoke about with the mountain. The success is only, you can only have what you have right now. So if you're reaching for something, whether that comes or it doesn't come, the success is in the getting there. And then when you get there, there's always going to be something else to go for. So it's learning to like love the process. And so I think for me, learning to love myself was actually learning to love the process and learning to be in the moment, and rather than just continuously looking back in the past or continuously looking like forward.
But there's a lot of people that struggle to say no. And I know one of your answers was one of your biggest successes was actually learning to say no.
Yep. Everything you've just explained there is the reason to learn to say no, because you've just said that that you felt like a failure because you let people down, but that feeling wouldn't have been there if you could just say no. So just bringing it back to I was a people pleaser like for a lot, like high percentage of my life, and it just drained me with energy. It like I wanted to help these people out. I hate to see people like suffering, or I hate to be like I almost feel like I need to just take on all of their like pain or worry or stress or like and there's only so much that you can take on as a person before you're almost like your cup is overfilled and then you're overwhelmed. You can't commit to the things that you've said that you wanted or didn't want to commit to. So for me, that was one of the biggest successes, and it was hard to start with because I felt guilty. I felt guilty about saying no. I felt, oh well, what if I don't do it and then this happens and this happens and this happens? Well, actually, none of that should be taking up my time or my energy because it was put upon me. I didn't choose that. So it's being able to put boundaries in place and learn to say no without the guilt or the pressure or the I've let them down, because you've made plans. You're busy. Like I see it all the time, and people like, oh, but what if this happens and what if this happens? Yeah, but what if you were living like abroad and you were working abroad? Like you wouldn't be able to just hop on a plane and go and sort that problem out, would you? So whenever those situations arise now, I just think, oh, well, what if I wasn't in the country? Like I wouldn't be able to do anything about it. So why am I putting that much stress and pressure on myself when I just say no and then I carry on with what I had planned?
Definitely. I completely understand that. There's a few things I want to unpick from that. That last thing you've just said is if you were out of the country, you could not do anything about it. And that's very true. And because we could do something about it, because we feel
like we have to.
It puts pressure on ourselves. Yeah. It feels like you have to.
So,
if you weren't there, you think, I cannot do anything about it, so you have to let it go.
That's the word there, let it go.
Yeah.
It's like it's with phones as well, isn't it? Like think about before phones were a thing. Like I remember it was like mobile phones. I remember phoning up a friend, oh, we'll meet here at this time, and we'll do this at this time, and everything was pre-organized, and if something happened in between, like you wouldn't know about it. You wouldn't be able to phone like it with work. It's emails, like emails coming through at 9-10 o'clock at night. Like when you used to finish at 5, you used to finish at 5, and then whatever went on during that time would be sorted the next day. So it's almost taking it back.
You've got this like circle of everything that's inside that circle is everything that you must do for yourself and your life on a daily basis. They're like fundamentals, and nothing can get in the way of those fundamentals. Whatever they are in your life, they're the things you have to get done. If you've got, and something else you mentioned there was time, which is massively important. If you've got then the time to jump outside of those boundaries to help someone out, then great, because we're not saying just to stop being kind to people and to stop supporting them in some way, but it is about having those boundaries. And if we're having to bring them into our boundaries, it's going to like muddy the water.
Yep. Yep. So what you've just like, also the way to look at it is like in that circle, if you had that circle and you were in it and you were able to give yourself everything you needed, then when you have the time, how much better and how much more quality is that time going to be with that person that you're helping out, rather than going at that, again, that negative energy. Oh, I've got to do this and they've taken my time away and now I've got to go and do this for them. And it's that a whole different approach, isn't it? Like, because you actually want to go and then spend the time with them and want to help them out, and everything else that you've got ticked off the box that kind of needed it for you, then it's like, yeah, I'm done. What would you like? How would you like to help? Oh yeah, I really enjoy doing that with you. And it's a whole different approach, isn't it?
You're actually enjoying helping someone than doing it with a grudge. And we're going to get into the third thing right now. So your third biggest success that you've said is now this, like I think we just had a brief chat about this before the podcast about there's a thing I say which I took from Robin Sharma, a global humanitarian, and he says small daily seemingly insignificant improvements, small daily improvements, when performed consistently over time, produce massive results. So I always focus on like, what can I do today? The small things that I can do today that, when stacked up, James Clear speaks about it in his book called Atomic Habits, that when they build up over time, they produce massive results. And I think a lot of us are focused on that. You know, let's have some achievable progress, which I'm sure everyone would agree. I think you probably agree as well. Is definitely something to do. It stops the whole thing.
Yeah, 100%.
But your answer here was actually the complete other side of that, which is, instead of focusing on the small thing, actually jump straight in at the deep end and then figure it out as you go along.
Yeah. And
explain how that approach has helped you.
So jumping in at the deep end without knowing how to swim is, you either are going to sink or you're going to swim, and you have to learn it in that moment, and you don't know the outcome because you haven't experienced the process. So I 100% agree with the small daily habits that build up over time, and I think they are vital. But I think it's a mixture of both that is needed, because, I don't know, for example, when I set up my first coaching business, I didn't even know what a cash flow was. I didn't know any business whatsoever. But what I did know is how to coach. So and these are where the two things come into play, because I'd spent X amount of days like working on my coaching and doing all my coaching, and that was the slow build up over time. And then I had a decision to make, which was to start a coaching business, not knowing what a business was before, like how to run a business, how to do any of that stuff. But if I sat with that and thought, oh, well, what if this goes wrong, and what if that goes wrong, and or what if I can't do that, and then all of the self-doubt starts to come in, all of the, oh, what if this happens, and what if this happens. But unless you just jump and just put your effort, put your energy into it, and like just go with it, because you can't learn any of that or experience any of that until you're in the process. You can only plan so much before you're like, okay, now I've got to act. But then almost, if you overplan, the action then like subsides when all you actually need is action. So that's it. I jumped into it, didn't know what to expect, didn't know what to do. I learned along the way, and that's the learning to swim. I learned to swim. The other option is I could have failed, and I could have just gained however many years of experience from running that business, or months, or however long that would have lasted. But like following the process, I built the business and it succeeded. But if I didn't take that jump, because this is another thing, I went around and asked all the people that I cared about, what do you think I should do? Do you think I should start the business, or do you think I should go and train to be a teacher? Or go and train to be a teacher. You've got a job there for life, and you've got this for, and yeah. And so literally, I asked like probably about 15 people. One of those people said, "Oh yeah, just go for it. What have you got to lose?" But like in my, I went against the other 14 people because I knew before I'd even asked those people I was going to do it. So I don't even know why I asked the people. And you've got to learn to listen to yourself, because the more like you like need external evidence, like the less you're going to probably do it, because the external evidence is never going to like it has to come from within. It has to be internal, and that's why jumping into things and then learning to swim along the way.
Yeah, if you constantly paddle, if you constantly like dip your feet in the water, you're never going to learn to actually swim on you. At some point, you've got to take the armbands
I mean, look
off.
at this podcast, for example. You've been thinking about this for how long? Like 2-3 years? Like doing a podcast?
2 years ago.
And it took you 4 Saturdays to set up. Like, and you had to go through that process to learn like all of the stuff that you learned in those 4 Saturdays. Like just 4 Saturdays, like, and the last 2 years. Do you know what I mean? That's the mind blowingness of it. Like, if we just take action rather than the what ifs, we'd get like so much. It's not even about getting ahead. We'd just like experience more faster, and then like that knowledge and learning and growth and everything.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't even get over the obstacle of creating a logo for the podcast. I had to have a resolution of 3,000 by 3,000. I don't even know what that means. And I couldn't find anything anywhere. I was trying to just like screenshot things off my phone and then trying to upload it. And it's like, no, error message. So then I tried emailing it. No, error message. And like there were these constant blockages all the time with just my logo, not let alone setting up everything else. And like, I eventually gave up, right? And that's why it took me 2 years. And this is what, when you throw yourself into that deep end, like what I was doing, it's like going in the shallow end with your armbands and you take them off and you realise you're sinking. So you stop, you put your feet down, you put your armbands back on, you can still feel the floor. So you can't put but when you're in the deep end, you can't touch the floor and you're forced to make it happen.
Yep.
And that's when like real effort comes in, because when someone actually really tries to swim, they find that they can. If it's a sink or swim situation, you have to swim. And I think this is like an accountability to yourself, that like whatever it is you want to do in your life, if you say to yourself, this is happening. I don't care what happens or what obstacles there are. This is happening. We've had to do this on our program of 75 hard, because you cannot fail every day. Otherwise you have to start back from day one. We won't go into that now, but that helped me to realize that when you set yourself something to do, you've made yourself a promise. So there's no going back. Whereas 2 years ago with this podcast, I came across an obstacle and just gave up. But there was no like real determination to make it happen. What happens, George, if you do jump in at the deep end and you sink?
Then you've got experience in what not to do. You've like learned lessons along the way. Like, obviously, in reality, you would drown, but like in the sense of like everything else, you've just learned. You've learned like, okay, that approach doesn't work, so let's jump back in and see. Like, we won't go down that avenue now because that didn't work last time, but we learned this, and this from it. So what can we take from that, and then jump back in with these 3 extra tools that we now have and try again. I think people lose their desires because of the pressures of life, like the stresses of life, and they're still within them, but then they get suppressed through like the day-to-day grind and like, and then like it's almost like when you are living authentically to yourself, nothing else matters. But when you have to do things that you don't really want to do, like that, like knocks your energy, it drains you, and then this is where the alcohol could come in, or do you know what I mean? It's like the bad habits, it's suppressing. Like, I know that when I'm not aligned with myself, and this was something that I've like learned over the last like decade or so, that I go into the negative space. I go into the like fixed mindset. I go into like not depression, but like I'm low. And that's because I'm doing things that don't align with me. And a lot of the world has to do things that don't align with them. So their dreams and their desires get like trapped almost. And it just gets like lower and lower. That vibration just gets lower and lower and lower. Whereas if you can find ways out of that, like, and like even just working towards a desire rather than not doing anything about it. Do you know what I mean?
I think you've probably hit the nail on the head that there's probably like their lives are probably clouded by the stresses of life and things that you have to do, like you say, that aren't in alignment with what you actually want to do.
And I think the strength of that desire then shines through, because then there's two options, isn't there? There's finding a ways out of that cloud, and then there's just going further down into that cloud. And the difference there is action. And like it's identifying why. Like, for example, when you said everybody wants to like lose weight, generate, but why do you want to lose weight? If your why isn't like, oh, I want to lose weight because I want to feel better, I'm fed up of like having these aches and pains, I'm fed up of like not feeling like happy in the way like my clothes like feel. Like if there's a oh, I just need to lose weight because, you know, the scales say I'm like this and then that I want to be that, like that's not a strong enough why. It needs to be like a painful like reason for change. And then when that pain is like almost it's too painful to keep going backwards, right, then action needs to start to be applied to start going forwards.
When you said take action, so it's all right having that desire, but if you don't take action, nothing's going to change. And is it like a case of prioritizing something? Like if you say you want to lose weight, but you also want to run your business, is there a case of maybe prioritizing one thing over the other, or is it more about having a balance between the both so that they're both achievable? Or is it about maneuvering things in a certain way? Like maybe, okay, I'm going to finish at 3 instead of 4 because I want to go to the gym, or you know,
it's both. You need balance, but then you also like there will be times where you have to prioritize something over something else, and sometimes those things won't be as high priority as they necessarily need to be. But as long as they're still there, like within the priorities and getting done, whether it's like to the intensity that they would normally be done, or they've just dipped off why you pay attention to somewhere else that's needed attention. So it's having them as priorities, and then it's also having that balance. So you might have like a really busy week at work, and the stress of trying to fit other stuff in just in that 1 week would probably do more damage than good than trying to fit it all in, if that makes sense. But then if you balance it out across a long period of time every year, for example, working out, yeah? So if you work out consistently for a whole year, but you have 1 week where you're like 1 week where you're literally, there's no time to prioritize work whatsoever. The impact of not working out that week you'll feel the next week when you start to work out. You'll be like, oh my God, I feel like I've worked out for ages, not just a week. But you will have the downside to not working out, because the workout releases the stress and all of that. But if you physically don't have the time and then you try and make more time, it's probably going to do more damage than good. So having that week off guilt-free, okay, I'm just going to take this week off as a deload week. I'm just going to do a couple of like stretches in the morning. Do you know what I mean? You have to find the balance that works for you, like, and then just look at it the long term rather than day by day sometimes.
And you were saying about priorities, like, you know, priorities play a part, massive part, but what would you say people need to improve their life? So you've got the things where you can adjust here and there depending on what happens in your day. But what would you say? But like people actually need to have right now, or that people think that they need in the future, that they're trying to obtain in order to improve their life. What would you say is needed?
I think to start with, what is needed is they need to want to change. There's people that say they like, oh, I need to change this, or I need to change that, I need to change that. But do you want to change? Are you willing to do what it takes to change? Because a lot of people like need to change, but do they want to? Because if they don't want to, they're not going to change. That's the first thing that's needed. Like, you need to want to change. And then once you've got that, it's then taking like literally the next action needed. Like, it could be the smallest action. Like, I've got clients, for example, some clients, they haven't stepped outside their house for like years. So, and they want to change that. But for me to tell them to go, okay, go walk outside, like, that is huge, absolutely huge for them. So they would be like, their first step would be to just be able to get to the front door, touch the front door, go back, do that for a couple of days until you feel comfortable to pull the handle down, do that for a couple of days. It's like you said, those small steps. And then I've got other clients that are like wanting to climb mountains, and like everybody has a different want and need, and it's understanding. And this is also people then tend to be like, well, oh, I want to be like that there. Like, for example, I want to have a 6-pack, and they're like overweight, 20 stone.
So
yeah. But, and then they associate who they are now to that one picture of that 6-pack. And then they like, oh, well, I'm never going to get that because I'm here. Rather than like looking at the outcome, it's like, what can I literally do the next day to just better myself? Not compare myself to others, not like put others on a pedestal. I'm here, this is my situation, let's just focus fully on me and how I can move forward. And then it's those little wins, those go into the doors, those pulling down the handles build so much momentum and so much confidence. And what is somebody else's, like, what is hard for somebody, one person, is easy for another person. And that's why the comparison thing should never be done, because like someone might find something really, really easy, and then they look at somebody else and be like, oh, well, why can't you do that? It's bloody easy. Like, no, it's not, because this person is in this situation and this is their hard. So it's making sure that you're doing the right steps for you. And no matter how small those steps are, it's just taking that step.
Yeah. So there's two things that really you would need, that you don't actually need to wait for anything. You just need to want to do it, and then you need to take some small action towards doing it.
Yeah.
That's quite simple, isn't it? When you think of it like that.
So simple, yet the bigger thought of, oh, I want to be like, for example, the walking out the door, I want to be at the park, that's too far a fetch. And then people attach to that outcome, and then they don't take the small action. Whereas if you just think, what can I do today to better myself? What can I do today to move closer to where I want to be? You're going to get there faster than thinking, oh, I want to be at the park.
If you could give one piece of advice to people listening, just one, like your golden rule, what would you say to people now as we approach the end of this podcast?
I would say, when you say to yourself that you're going to do something, do it. Because if you say to yourself you're going to lose weight or start getting fit or start a business, and then you don't do the actions that go with the thing that you want to be doing, nothing happens. You then build evidence that you're not that person. And then the longer that goes on, the more action you don't take, the more evidence you're building to prove to yourself that you're not that person. Whereas if you go the other way and you say, okay, I want to get fit, I want to get healthy, I want to build a business, and then you take action, you are then building evidence to prove to yourself that actually, yeah, that is the person who I am. So if you say to yourself you are going to do something, follow through with action. Again, no matter how small that action is, just follow through with action. That's simple.
Yeah,
That's simple.
Yeah, we discussed that actually during the episode. Then we actually said about accountability and making and it is so massive when you actually stick to what you say you're going to do. The momentum builds, your confidence builds, your self-belief builds, your productivity builds. Then you just experiencing all these massive results on the back end of that.
Because you're aligning your thoughts and your actions together, and then that is creating that energy.
And it's the other way, isn't it? If you say you're going to do something and you don't, you feel like a failure. You've lost momentum.
That's why.
You're not going to restart because you think like.
That's why it's so important. It's so important to do what you say you're going to do, because if you don't, it goes the other way. So you either don't say it, or you say it and do it.
Yeah, very true. Yeah, great. Georgina, where can people find you who are listening to this now? I know you've got a coaching business. That you've got a YouTube channel.
Just
explain a bit about your business and where people can find you.
Instagram, Georgina Mckimm, YouTube, Georgina Mckimm, TikTok, Georgina Mckimm. Just drop me a message and And have you got a program in place that you want to talk about now, or is that in the future? Yeah, the program is called the Life Change Academy, and the Life Change Academy is literally just drop me a message. It will be available to you'll be able to find it in the future, but the Life Change Academy is where we change people's lives.
Yes, everybody for listening to this podcast, we really appreciate you tuning in. We hope we bring off some value to you today. Have a great weekend, have a great week, whatever you're doing, and remember to implement some changes, to build up a desire to change, take some daily action, keep building momentum so that you can continue to improve you. And what happens when you improve you? You improve your life.